What's up, everybody? What is up, boxing fans around the world? Technically, it is still Monday morning. In about 15, 14 minutes, it's going to be the afternoon, but we're still technically getting some Monday morning thoughts ready.
The main duty of the Secretary of State is to...
Give me a moment here. But, yeah, we're here with Monday morning thoughts. I'm going to just wait for some people to get in the room, but we got to cover all 5 major fights from the weekend. Starting with Mikaela Mayer, losing in a slight upset to Alicia Baumgardner, new queen at 130 pounds. Then, of course, jump into the main event that was there, Shields and Marshall for the undisputed middleweight title. And then let's jump to Haney versus Kambosos. Devin Haney, still the undisputed lightweight champion. And then we'll close up with the big card that was in Brooklyn on Fox pay-per-view. Caleb Plant beating Anthony Dirrell with a knockout of the year candidate, and then another knockout of the year candidate with Deontay Wilder sparking out Robert Helenius in the first round. So, just gonna let some people join in the chat here, and then we'll get started on our Z-Cap and in our thoughts, Monday morning thoughts after what was a huge weekend of boxing. Jeremy Dominguez, yes sir, great weekend of boxing. I definitely enjoyed calling. I don't know if you guys were in the live round by rounds during the weekend, but we had a great time calling the fights. Awesome weekend, but I gotta say, let's fucking go Yankees. Sergio Munoz, yes sir. Yankees today. Are we today or tomorrow? I believe today. Game 5 against the Guardians back in the Bronx, but it might be tomorrow. I don't know if they gave him a day rest. We're gonna do all boxing talk, but it's definitely Yankee land in the office. Bama Bo, what's up, baby? Salute. Thank you for joining in with us. Matt Perez, Haney fight. Boring. It wasn't boring. Definitely down the stretch. Second half of the fight, it really heated up. And there was a lot of blood spilled in the ring by both Haney and Kambosos. A lot of that from headbutts. But Haney-Kambosos, too, was a good fight. Part 1 was an exhibition of Haney's jab. And it was a display of Haney having maybe the best jab, if not one of the best jabs in boxing. But Part 2, Devin was trying to counterpunch with power shots. He dropped in a lot of straight right hands. He checked them with some hard left hooks. And it was a much more entertaining fight, Part 2, in part because George being so aggressive. Actually, at times he wasn't always looking to close distance and was kind of bluffing at times, giving an aggressive look, switching southpaw, but never actually throwing punches out of the southpaw stance. But nonetheless, it was a much more exciting Part 2. It was a good fight. Let's see here in the chat before we get started. Amazing fights and great sportsmanship. Yeah, Claressa Shields really was a great sportswoman. Not sportsman after the fight. Didn't rub it in on Savannah Marshall. Talked about how she couldn't stop crying tears of joy all weekend. That's a feeling I imagine very few of us get to experience. I'm a little jealous. I want to know what tasting that feels like, where you've accomplished so much and had so much self-gratification that you're in tears all weekend. But shout out to her for becoming 3-time undisputed champion. Wilder's back. Nick M. Wilder's back makes boxing that much better. Definitely makes the heavyweight division, and of course that, like you said, that makes boxing better. Deontay is the true wild card of the division. No pun intended. Well, I get maybe a little bit. But he really remains the wild card of the division. We'll get to his fight later. Carson Merck, my man, Carson Merck. Shout out to you, brother. I love you. But not Guardians all day. No. Got to go with the Yankees, baby. But, shout out to Cleveland, Ohio. Got a lot of love for Cleveland. You guys have even made me tune into some Browns games and cheer for you guys. But it's all Yankees today. Let's see what else. If Kambosos can touch Devin, imagine Tank. Okay, I guess that's a fair point. But, at the same time, Devin won those fights with Kambosos handily. And, you could flip the coin and say, well, if Mario Barrios, if Leo Santa Cruz were able to bank rounds against Gervonta Davis, imagine how easy it is for Devin Haney to bank rounds against Gervonta Davis. But you could certainly play that both ways. You bring up a fair point, too. I think that's definitely the best fight in the lightweight division. Anthony Barnes, how about Alicia Baumgardner, though? Yeah, you know what, Anthony? Oh, yeah, we got almost 200 people in here now, so we're good enough to get started. Anthony, you're right. David Williams, what's up, baby? Thank you for joining us. But Anthony Barnes, on that note, let's get started with the first big fight over the weekend that we got a Z-cap. Alicia Baumgardner, slight upset, not a huge upset, but slight upset. The Ring Magazine did a poll of about 16 writers, and one had it heading in had it a draw. Only one out of 16 picked Baumgardner to win, and 14 out of 16 picked Mikaela Mayer to win the fight and add another belt to her collection. She was favored because I think she earned the right to have the edge heading into that fight, even though the eye test, when you watch the tapes heading in, you knew Baumgardner stood a great chance of pulling this off. You knew from watching the tapes that Baumgardner was a more natural athlete than Mikaela Mayer, that she's a more naturally coordinated talent, and she can do more creative things in the ring, but Mikaela had better experience. She was the better amateur. She medaled. She made the Olympics and medaled there. Baumgardner didn't make the Olympics. And Mikaela, under Al Mitchell and Kate Koroma, really has drilled in that USA boxing, hands-up, fundamental style. She's got great fundamentals, but Baumgardner brought the sophistication and the sauce of the pros. She brought that shoulder roll. She had a beautiful up jab, and she was much slicker than Mikaela Mayer. Mayer, kept her hands up high all night, very disciplined in bringing her hands back to her chin, but not enough nuance in her defense compared to Alicia Baumgardner. Baumgardner can do a couple of different things defensively to make you miss. Mikaela still relying largely on those USA boxing fundamentals. But this fight was a great battle of the jab. Mikaela Mayer primarily with her double jab out of her high guard, and Alicia Baumgardner with a beautiful up jab from her hip. She almost never kept that lead hand up all night. She trusted her shoulder roll. She trusted her upper body movement. And when the two fighters exchanged, a number of times Baumgardner was able to get her head off the line and walk Mikaela into the right hand and get her head off the line to get out of the way of Mikaela in the exchange. And she'd get the better of those exchanges by doing that. And Mikaela, at times, did punch with her head down, and she's doing that because she's keeping her chin tucked as possible, keeping her chin tucked and not up, and she's keeping her hands up. So at times when she's throwing, it almost gives the appearance that her head's down, and Alicia, with her head up, eyes on the target, has a little bit better radar and slips the shot and walks Mikaela into those right hands. She won those exchanges a number of times. Good counterpunching by Alicia Baumgardner. And back to that battle of the jab, though. Baumgardner was working her levels with it better than Mikaela, but Mikaela backed her up and set up her combinations when she was successful with her double jab out of the high guard. So two different types of jabs from both women, both effective. This was the most technical, and it was high-speed chess. It wasn't boring chess. It was an entertaining fight. This was the most technical female championship fight I'd seen. Shields and Marshall was more entertaining. Marlon Esparza, Senicia Estrada, more of a war. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, more of a war. But in terms of what we call high-speed chess in boxing, this was the best I'd seen in a female fight. Mikaela Mayer has nothing to be ashamed of. She won 4 out of 10. She was very much in this fight and showcased very good skills, but she came up just a little bit short. I had Baumgardner winning the first 3 rounds. Then Mikaela came on and won the next 3, 4, 5, and 6 to even it up at 3 rounds apiece heading into the final 4 rounds. Then Baumgardner, she surprised maybe Mikaela a little bit because Mikaela expected with her conditioning and her work rate to take over in the second half of the fight, but that's not what happened. Baumgardner, she regained momentum, winning 7 and 8. Then Mikaela won 9, and then Mikaela let the 10th get a little bit away from her when she needed that round on my card to get the draw. She let that round get away from her a little bit. Baumgardner a little more accurate, not sensational, and she does enough to win 6 rounds to 4 and get that split decision that she deserved. Mikaela says after the fight she felt she won. She thinks Alicia really deep down felt she lost. I don't agree with her. I think Alicia was very confident she won that fight when the bell rang, and she did win. Very spirited, competitive fight. Now, on to the aftermath. Alicia says she's not going to give Mikaela a rematch. And I get it. There's the personal animosity, and when you beat someone you don't like, you don't want to give them a chance at revenge because you'll take those bragging rights and take it to the bank for life. But, the guys behind me, Morales and Barrera, had 3 of the best fights you could have asked for, but they didn't happen right away. First fight was in 2000, second fight in 2002, third fight in 2004. So even though I think this fight warrants an immediate rematch, I get it if Baumgardner wants to fight Choi and become undisputed and put Michaela on the back burner for now. What Michaela's got to do is what Marlon Esparza has done since losing her fight to Estrada. You know Esparza wants that rematch. And Senicia, like Baumgardner said after that fight, that girl's never getting a rematch. I'm never giving her a rematch. But if you ask Senicia now, she's open to the rematch. She sounds like she'll do the rematch. Why is that? Because Esparza has done her part in the 3 years since they first fought. And that might be what Michaela's going to have to go up against. She might have to win some big fights. She might have to go to Ireland as an underdog and beat Katie Taylor. She'd be a big underdog in that fight. But if you can do that, like Eric Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera, in between the first and second fight with Morales, he wanted that immediate rematch. He deserved it. He didn't get it. But he went out and he beat Prince Nassim Hamed. And he got it. And we'll get to Caleb Plant later, who wants that rematch with Canelo. But he might have to beat David Benavidez if he really wants that rematch with Canelo. So even though I do think Michaela was competitive in this fight to deserve a rematch, she was the A side the first time and kind of gave Alicia the opportunity. I know Alicia wouldn't see it that way, but she was the A side, and she gets in there with Baumgardner. Now Baumgardner, it would be solid of her to return the favor, but if she goes after Choi to become undisputed, Michaela's going to have to put in work to force her hand to make her get in the ring again. So that is my analysis on Baumgardner Mayer. Great job by Baumgardner. Very competitive effort by Michaela Mayer. Still shows she was world class. The best high speed chess kind of technical female championship fight I've seen to this point. I hope they rematch, but Michaela's going to have to understand if Baumgardner is right now stuck in her ways that she wants undisputed and she's not interested in a rematch, she's going to have to put in work to force her hand. So let's get here. Alex Mirek, why not put a thumbnail of yourself? Well, we had first of all, it's always about the fighter. It's not about me. But with all four fighters already in the thumbnail, it might have been a little tough to fit my face in there. But next time, Alex, I think we will get me in the thumbnail just to let you guys know. Oh, or you're drunk trolling. Okay, never mind. I'll disregard what you said. And Avery81st says, Baumgardner looked like a true general controlling the pace and outclassed Mayer. I think outclass is too strong a word. I really do. Mayer was right there, but Baumgardner did control that pace, and she was a step ahead of Mayer, and she won that fight. So here we go now. On to what was the main event that night, Savannah Marshall, Claressa Shields. I've always said Shields is the GOAT. I think, and I say that because objectively, she's proven that. I get more pushback than I would anticipate logically from people when I call her the GOAT. I get the Katie Taylor, but simple numbers will show you she's the GOAT. Katie Taylor's been undisputed in one division. Claressa Shields has been undisputed 3 times and has been unified, essentially undisputed over 3 divisions: 154 pounds, 160 pounds, and 168 pounds. And when it comes to the gold medals, they're both 2 for 2. They're both even on the gold medals. So objectively speaking, Shields is the GOAT. Like no one, Amanda Serrano has 8 divisions, but I think 7 out of 8 of those divisions, she only grabbed 1 title, the WBO in most of them. She's undisputed at featherweight now, but Claressa was undisputed in 3 different divisions and unified at 168. So she's the GOAT. She proved that again this weekend. I really think she is to female boxing, what Simone Biles is to gymnasts, what Tiger Woods was to golf, what Michael Jordan was to golf, what Floyd Mayweather was to the male side of the sport in his run. She is that caliber of athlete. If we were being gamers about it, she's S tier. She is as dominant. She is as good at her sport, as dominant at her sport as anyone is in professional sports right now. And she should be a bigger star. She should be closer to what Ronda Rousey was in the UFC. She should be what Serena Williams is in tennis. Serena achieved that mainstream success. And I hope Claressa is really starting to knock on the door. She already has. She's gotten some Nickelodeon awards. When you go to ESPN Plus, she's one of the 3 faces they advertise. But congrats to her on a great fight. I had the fight 7 rounds to 3. I didn't think it was as close as some people on Twitter saw it. I thought it was a pretty dominant performance in a really exciting fight. Savannah Marshall did much better in the second half. I had Claressa sweeping 5-0 in the first half, and I guess I gave Marshall 3 out of 5 in the second half. But that 10th round was close. It could have went either way. I gave it to Marshall. And, Shields after the fight said she couldn't see out of her right eye. And you might look at that and go, what is she talking about? It's nowhere near closed. We've seen fighters with completely closed eyes, and hers weren't closed. But she got hit on that sweet spot, that Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns sweet spot, where Ray Leonard had his first retirement. I guess it's the orbital bone. I'm not a doctor. But it's right here, and that'll really mess with your vision. And she had a very painful bump right on the sweet spot of her bone there. And Marshall's heavy-handed. She was a girl that doesn't even have to get her legs into every punch. She can just kind of throw these clubbing shots with you on the ropes, arm punches, and they still hurt because she's just strong and broad-shouldered and bigger than Claressa. She's almost 6 feet tall. I don't know what they call country strong in the UK. In America, we got that phrase country strong, but Savannah Marshall is country strong. And Claressa Shields said she punched hard after the fight. But in the second half, Marshall did much better than the first half, but this fight was all about Shields' combination punching, her hand speed, how much she dominated her in the inside to mid-range. Marshall with those longer arms and awkward style. Good job of Marshall, even though she got hit a lot, keeping her chin behind that shoulder with that awkward Tyson Fury-esque style. She fought a good fight, and she showed a lot of heart. She was exhausted in those late rounds, but her pride kept her up and kept her coming forward and kept her punching and taking the punishment. Marshall was red all over by the second and third round. She was red on her shoulders, red in her abdomen, reddened all over her face. Claressa was hitting her every and anywhere with combinations to the body, to the head. Her work rate was insane in this fight. She threw 102 punches in round 5 with 2-minute rounds. That means she was on pace to throw over 150 punches if it was a 3-minute round. Just absurd. And maybe part of why Marshall got back into the fight in the second half is Shields really tried to knock her out from the opening bell. So that was a great performance for Claressa Shields, who really, I don't even like MMA, and I'm trying to think of another point I was going to make here about the fight, but in the meantime, I don't even like MMA, but she's a step ahead by going and venturing over to the PFL and the MMA, because a great athlete, a truly great professional athlete like herself, likes to really challenge herself and seek out challenges. And I think she just beat the toughest challenge she could have beaten in front of her, Savannah Marshall, a girl that was physically bigger than her, who has boxing skills and is awkward and can punch hard. And she beat her 7-3, 8-2, and I don't know who can challenge her in female boxing. She's already won every belt there is to win across every division she can compete in. Maybe she could boil down to 47, but you know what happens if she can get her body to 47. She'd dominate Jessica McCaskill. I love boxing. I don't watch mixed martial arts, but that would appear to be the next challenge for Claressa Shields, and that's where I believe she's competing next, is back in the cage in the PFL. She's beaten, Franchon Cruz DeZern is an undisputed champion, an excellent fighter in female boxing. Claressa beat her in her professional debut. She already marked that off the list. She beat Hammer. She's beaten Marshall now. She's won every belt. So, I guess on to MMA for Claressa Shields. And to see if she can pull off what Holly Holm pulled off, jumping from boxing as world champion and making it all the way to the UFC and in mixed martial arts as a champion. But just great job by Claressa Shields. And I know I had another point I wanted to make about her, but I'll have to forget it for now. Great mid-range and she's one of the best combination punchers in boxing, male or female, and some of the best hand speed in boxing, male or female. So we'll move on now to what was the main event over in Australia between Devin the Dream Haney, my man Devin the Dream Haney, who I've covered out here in Las Vegas since he was 15 years old, before he was a professional, very familiar with him. And, the classy George Kambosos George Kambosos, who came out and really did make it a more entertaining fight. Both fighters were different and better, I think, in this fight. I think Haney switched it up, and he could have won the fight on the outside with his jab all night, but he was looking to walk George in to some big counters. And there was a moment in the 7th round where Haney really, really got nice with the lead right hand and was even Mayweather-esque, not being blasphemous, but was a little Mayweather-esque in the 7th round when he started pop-shotting with the lead right hand and slipping underneath whatever came back with great reflexes. So he got the lead right hand working in this fight. It wasn't just the jab. He checked George Kambosos with some hard left hooks time and again. I thought he got off to a 7-0 lead, and then Kambosos in 8 and 9 made it a fight. Landed some overhand rights on Devin, but Devin was kind of happy to exchange. He wanted George to keep taking chances to get off some big counter shots, and he hit George with over 200 punches in this fight and never coasted in this fight, never really played it safe until maybe the last round, where he had already hit Kambosos with about 200 shots, 100 right hands, and Kambosos apparently just wasn't going anywhere, so he knew he was headed for the distance at that point. But Kambosos, despite giving the appearance of being more aggressive, he would switch southpaw, switch back. He never punched out of the southpaw stance. It was just an awkward adjustment he was doing to try to have success. But after the first round, and I gave Kambosos the first round, so actually allow me to correct myself. I didn't have it a clean sweep 7-0 heading into the 8th. I did give Kambosos round 1 because he finished in the final 10 seconds landing a right hand and had a good flurry with Devin on the ropes. But after that first round, Devin tamed him quite a bit after that point. And then it wasn't until the 8th and 9th that George started to go for broke again. But from rounds like 2 to 7, Devin just controlled him with range. He controlled him with the jab, but he didn't look to land 2, 3, 4 jabs in a row. He just looked to control range with the jab and make George walk into punches and take chances. And he did that really well. He nailed him with a lot of lead right hands and beautiful check hooks. And it was I predicted before the fight that Haney would showcase more of an offensive arsenal, and he did just that. He showed other things beyond his elite jab. He showed the right hand and the check hook. Popped George in the first fight with a beautiful lead left uppercut from long range where it's hard to get that off, and he did that in fight 1. We didn't really see the uppercut in fight 2 for Devin, but every other punch was there, and it was a more entertaining fight than fight 2 because George went for broke down the stretch, and Devin was wanted him to do that so he can get off his best counter shots in hopes of stopping him. He doesn't stop him, but showed more of an offensive arsenal, and it was a more entertaining fight and a really good performance for Devin. Obviously, I think he's not just the undisputed champion. I don't think he just has the hardware. I do think he's definitely the best lightweight in boxing. He's the hardest guy to beat in the division. He has length, skills, speed, and defense, and smarts, and great conditioning that just make him so hard to beat for these guys. He has Ryan Garcia's size at lightweight, but he has so much more defensive skill and counterpunching than Garcia. And against guys like Tank and Lomachenko, these great southpaws, he's bigger than them. Tank is coming up from 130. Lomachenko's coming up from 126 originally. And Devin rehydrated to what looked like 155 pounds on Saturday night. He looked like a welterweight in there, and he's going to be a welterweight one day. So, and even Teofimo, who moved up to 140, he lacks the length that Haney has, with his reach and at 5'9.5". So Devin, out of all the young guns, I think is going to move up the most divisions and win the most titles over divisions, and he's the hardest to beat over 12 rounds. It's not about the highlight reel knockouts, and it's tough to bank rounds against this guy, and he's getting better. He's getting better and better as time goes on. Everyone wants to see the Lomachenko-Haney fight. I still like that fight. People are worried if Devin can squeeze down to 35 still, but he's at the age at 23 where you can get away with that. And his rehydration in this rematch was encouraging for him sticking around at lightweight. He really put on the 20 pounds and looked really refreshed on fight night at 155. I'm guessing he was about 150 to 155. I still think at 140, it's going to do him some help. It's going to, the weight cut, because guys, Kenny Porter always told me about my man, one of my best friends, Sean Porter, coming down in weight. He always told me we lose something those last 10 pounds. From about 60 to 57 to 47, we lose something those last 10 pounds, and Sean definitely would hit harder at 154 had he have ever fought there. So I think Devin will benefit when he does move up. But I think he can make lightweight for Lomachenko, and I think he beats Lomachenko, and I don't think that's a crazy pick. Look, guys, one guy is an aging fighter, still in his prime, Lomachenko, about in his mid-30s, has had injuries, and was a featherweight. The other guy is in his early to mid-20s, is going to be a welterweight, maybe even a 154-pounder one day, has fought his whole career at lightweight, and is ascending. One guy's is bigger and younger and getting better, and the other guy is smaller and older and has had injuries and isn't getting better. He might still be what he was. He's still in his prime. He's still great. So I think if Lomachenko can close distance, and if Lomachenko comes in like he did against Nakatani with an edge, he was pissed that night after he lost his belts to Lopez. If he comes in with an edge, with an aggression, if he doesn't fight like he did against Lopez, where he didn't do anything in the first half of the fight, he stands a better chance. He's got to get inside of Devin's long arms and make it a mid to close range fight and give Devin problems there. But good luck getting behind the jab. And Devin has the athleticism and the feet to pivot with Lomachenko when Lomachenko steps in that southpaw angle and he steps to outside of your lead foot. Devin, like Teofimo did, has the athleticism to spin off with him and keep the radar on him, keep the jab on him. That's what Teofimo did. So I got Haney beating Lomachenko. I think he would beat Davis too, but someone mentioned earlier if Kambosos can touch him, that means Tank can touch him. And it's going to be a different story, him taking that kind of punch from Tank Davis than it is Kambosos. But I'll bank on the boxer over the. I'll bank on the guy who's got a little bit of the superior skills and the length over the guy who's got the better punch. I'll take the boxer over the puncher, like Gene Tunney said all those years ago, over 100 years ago when he was about to fight Jack Dempsey. So yeah, let me check the chat here before we keep things moving. Justin Hutchinson, salute. Thank you, man. There is no good fight for him unless he moves up a weight or two. Really, Derek Grady? You really think so? I mean, we got Shakur Stevenson, who just moved up to lightweight. You got Lomachenko still there. You got Tank Davis. I think Tank Davis and Devin Haney is the Spence Crawford of the lightweight division. That's just me. But I know Tank is angling towards Ryan, and that's also a great fight where someone gets stopped. But I think in terms of if you really want number one versus number two, and you want to find out who the real best lightweight in the world is, it's Tank versus Haney right now. I think Ryan versus Tank is two top five lightweights, a great fight. I think same thing with Devin versus Loma. Great fight, two top five lightweights. But I really think number one versus number two is Haney and Davis. Let's see. Tank won't fight Loma, Haney, or Stevenson. Well, promotional issues are getting in the way of that. But looks like they're... cooling some, melting some cold ice over on the Golden Boy front to make Ryan happen, and that is a huge fight as well. Kick-Ass says Ryan is pretty good. George Reeves, if you think Devin can beat Tank, what are you thinking? Tank is more than just a knockout artist. Tank is more than just a knockout artist. Tank has great skills, great coordination and defense. He punches hard with both hands. Great hand speed. Some of the best hand speed pound for pound in boxing. Great accuracy. One of the most accurate power punchers in the sport. Has the right hook. Has the brick hand. Has the uppercut, as we all know. But doesn't have Devin's jab. And that's going to be a problem at long range against the great jab of Devin Haney. Jab's most important punch. All those other punches I mentioned for Tank, that's all great. But Devin's got him beat in the jab department, But Tank has the full offensive arsenal, great defense to go along with it, great coordination and hand speed. But he doesn't throw a lot of punches per round. Devin's going to outwork him. Devin has a high work rate and a busy jab. So if Tank can't get him out of there, do you, Derek Grady, see Tank winning by decision, or do you think the only way Tank could beat Devin is by knockout? You tell me. All right, just about time to move on to the fights that were on in New York. Caleb Plant and Deontay Wilder. Both have knockout of the year candidates in Brooklyn. And we'll start with Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant first fight under Stephen Breadman Edwards, the very boxing-wise Stephen Breadman Edwards. I know some of you follow him on Twitter. Could be an analyst as well as a trainer. He looked very good in his first fight with Breadman. From the first punch he threw, he really committed and had snap on his jab to the body. It was sharp, fast, and even though it's just a jab to the body, it was almost thrown with mean intentions, Caleb. And you knew from the opening bell, Caleb was sharp. And he looked more like the guy that beat Jose Uzcategui for me. I thought in the Caleb Truax fight, we started to see Caleb regress a little bit. He looked great against Feigen Boots. He looked great against Mike Lee. But a third straight, less than elite opponent, let's say, I think it began to make him regress a little bit against Caleb Truax. And I actually thought he carried that into the ring against Canelo a little bit. I actually think the Caleb Plant that fought Jose Uzcategui was a little sharper and more dynamic than the Caleb Plant that fought Canelo. But that said, he looked back to the guy that beat Uzcategui, had more zip on his shots. He obviously knocked out Dirrell. He dropped Uzcategui twice. So he's back to showing some pop in his hands. And beautiful double left hook to take out Dirrell. Dirrell was coming in reckless, without a lot of respect, was fighting on anger, it appeared, was angry all week, and it cost him. He came in without being defensively responsible, without respect for Caleb Plant's punching power, tried to paint him as a runner who was just going to try and tap him and touch him all night and get to the scorecards, but Caleb really sat down and that's kind of the move a lot of Mexican fighters are known for, right? The touch the liver, touch the body, and then bang, come up with the left hook. And but Caleb committed to both shots. He threw the body shot hard. Beautiful double left hook. Caleb's best shot has always been his left hook, his left hand. But Breadman worked on the right hand, and we saw a little bit of an improvement on his right hand because Caleb turning, against Canelo was a little bit of a one-handed fighter, just with a good jab and with a good check hook and a good left hook, but didn't really have the right hand against Canelo. But really good performance for Caleb. Beautiful knockout against Anthony Dirrell. He does the shovel that went viral to only add on to his victory to get it more attention. Anthony Dirrell, tough moment to go through when you have that heated trash talk and then you got to live it down after a brutal knockout. But this is boxing. It happens. Shout out to Dirrell for getting in there and fighting an aggressive fight, making it an entertaining fight. He could have just came in, played the old man, went 12, got outboxed, but he got knocked out because he kept trying to go for the knockout even when he was getting dominated every round. But an impressive performance for Caleb Plant in his first showing with Stephen Edwards. But moving on to the future for him, we got to see the Benavidez fight. And he was reluctant to say the name Benavidez after the fight. He only wanted to say one name, Canelo Alvarez. Well, of course, fighting Canelo means another $10 to $20 million and a shot at every belt there is to grab in boxing. But like I said about Michaela Mayer earlier, how she may have to earn her way back by winning a big fight or two, like Esparza has for Estrada, like Barrera had to do in beating Prince Nassim. If you really want that rematch, you got to beat David Benavidez. This was a WBC title eliminator, and yeah, Canelo has the full WBC title, but guess what's standing in between the full WBC title and winning that title eliminator? It's the interim WBC world title held by David Benavidez. And that's a fight that's overdue. That fight should have happened when David had the WBC and Caleb had the IBF. That should have been a unification that happened. Yeah, Caleb got stripped and David got stripped and missed weight in the bubble, but got a funny feeling he'd have made 168 if he was facing Caleb Plant in that bubble. But I digress. That fight should definitely happen now. It was announced today that Benavidez has a fight with Jose Uzcategui in January. That's not enough of an excuse to get out of making a fight with David because Caleb has already said he's going to enjoy the holiday season. So it's not like he'll be on schedule to get back in the ring 4 to 5 months from now. So the next fight for Caleb Plant should be David Benavidez. And the way he looked Saturday night, it's still a tough fight for David Benavidez because Plant can check you with that left hook and David can be hit. David will have to be more defensively responsible against Caleb Plant, especially early. But truthfully, I do favor Benavidez to win that fight. The question is, can he get the fight? Can he get the opportunity to fight Plant? Because Plant it might be thinking of getting to Canelo straight away without any Benavidez. And, but I think that Canelo would willingly give him a rematch if he were to beat Benavidez. Benavidez is a thorn in the side of Canelo, and he doesn't know if he wants to pull it out by fighting him himself. And he might appreciate someone else pulling it out for him and giving a rematch to a guy he would feel confident he could beat again. But that's the fight that's got to happen, is Plant and Benavidez. I think that's a very tough fight for David early with the sharpness and the skills and the boxing ability of Caleb Plant. But in the second half of that fight, I think David could definitely get to him, and that would be a great fight. I just hope it happens in 2023. There's no reason why it shouldn't happen in 2023. Caleb didn't mention his name after the fight, but if he really wants that Canelo rematch, go ahead and get through Benavidez, and I think you'll get that rematch. You guys let me know in the chats what you guys think about that. Well, James XM says Benavidez overrated. Caleb outboxes him. I think you might be underestimating the boxing ability of David Benavidez. As great a jab, and it's a great up jab, like Baumgardner against Mayer. Great up jab Caleb Plant has, a thing of beauty, and he works his levels to it. But David has an incredible jab as well. So Caleb won't be able to just languish on the outside and control range on the jab like he did Dirrell. David's going to be jabbing with him, and he has a piston just like Caleb has a piston, and his jabs start to hurt you if he touches you with them. And then if Caleb's legs slow down in the second half of that fight and he has to stand in range and exchange with David along the ropes especially, that's going to get ugly for him, I believe. We'll have to see. But that's a great matchup. I don't count Caleb out. He's a world-class champion and boxer. But I think David really is the monster at 168 pounds. And I think he could even go up to 175 and beat Beterbiev and beat Bivol. I'm very high on Benavidez, as everyone knows. But this was Caleb Plant's night, and he had a hell of a performance. But we got to see him in against Benavidez in 2023. So that leaves us with the main event. Wilder, Helenius. Helenius. Yes, Robert Helenius. And gets knocked out in the first round. Deontay Wilder with an arm punch, didn't even have his legs underneath him, was backed up against the ropes, literally throws an arm punch off the ropes and sends the Northern Nightmare to Valhalla, I guess. You know, he sent him to the Nether Realm, as people were joking around. And it looked like Helenius, you know, he took chances too early there. He'd have been wise to just get out of the first round, right? When you're fighting Deontay Wilder, maybe a good tip is get out of the first round, if nothing else, right? And but Wilder was a little awkward with the new side-to-side movement he's implementing with Malik Scott. So maybe Helenius is looking at that kind of awkward movement, not as fluid as the guys he's watching on tape and emulating, like Sugar Ray Robinson. And maybe he's thinking, I can attack while he has his back against the ropes. Because Wilder's back touched the ropes about 5 or 6 times in the round. And so I think Helenius thought to himself, you know what, I got to take a chance here if he's going to keep putting himself on the ropes. And he lunged in, and he walks right into the first real right hand he eats. He goes down. Wilder doesn't even have everything on it. And that's all she wrote with a first-round knockout. And that just shows Deontay Wilder might have the best, in terms of punching power, might have the best right hand in heavyweight boxing history. You know, when you talk the great punchers in heavyweight history, it's Tyson, it's Foreman, it's Shavers, it's Joe Louis, and I mean maybe Lennox Lewis as well, Ron Lyle, and you got to put Deontay Wilder right there. And you know, when you're talking about the right hand, it might be number one in terms of punching power all time. But that said, still a lot of questions. Well, still one major question for Deontay Wilder, the chin. That after you suffer a brutal knockout like he did with Fury in those wars with Tyson Fury, the punch resistance could be, and we didn't really see Fury's chin tested either against Dillian White when he knocked him out. So we don't really know how well Fury or Wilder could take a shot after they dropped each other 5 or 4 times each in 3 fights. So there's still question marks with Deontay Wilder. We don't know if he could take a punch. You know, but it didn't get there. He walks Helenius into a right hand, and he did it off the back foot. So shout out to Malik Scott, who's been working on Deontay walking guys into right hands. It's something he'd done in the past too. He's walked guys into right hands, but they get the job done. And I want to see the Usyk fight. You know, I know PBC has Andy Ruiz all nice and lined up for Deontay. That's a good fight, but it's a non-title fight. And Deontay with one right hand against Usyk could become a first ballot Hall of Famer and really solidify himself no longer as a great heavyweight puncher, but a great heavyweight. So the Ruiz fight's a good fight. And Joshua, it seems to be the fight people really want. But I like the Usyk fight because of the history on the line and the potential for, you know, we say these corny things, history and legacy, but that really is on the line for Deontay. He could really become an all-time great heavyweight and not just a great puncher if he could beat an Alexander Usyk. That's a tightrope back. That's why I want to see the fight. Usyk, I think it would look like the rematch with Luis Ortiz, the southpaw stepping over in angles, tagging Deontay repeatedly, but all it takes is one right hand, and Usyk is an aggressive fighter. He he's in punching range. He's a 6'3" guy who has to close the distance against a guy who's 6'7" like Joshua, 6'6" or 6'6" like Joshua, 6'7" like Wilder. So he's going to be in the danger zone. Now he moves his head so well and moves his feet so well that he's gonna slip 90% of what Deontay has coming back. But all Deontay has to do is nail him one time with that right hand, and he could probably knock him out. So Deontay could be down 6-0, 7-0, like he was against Ortiz, and then still bomb him out with one straight right hand. The question is, and we didn't get this question answered, is Deontay still got a good enough chin to withstand punishment for 6 or 7 rounds to get that right hand off? Because if his chin's not the same, then he can't stand in there for 6 or 7 rounds before he finally lines up his man with the right hand. So that's a question that left to be answered. But if Wilder still has the same punch resistance he did in the Fury fights and before the Fury fights, he could take a guy coming up from cruiserweight and he could take, 50, 60, 70 power shots if need be before he can finally get this guy to slow down and nail him just once with the right hand. So that's a great fight. That's a tightrope act for Alexander Usyk. Ruiz fight wouldn't be that entertaining. It'd be entertaining because it's going to end in a knockout, but it's not that entertaining because Ruiz, once he felt the power of Ortiz, he didn't throw a lot of punches per round. So, we'll see. Ruiz outboxed Luis Ortiz. I don't know if he could outbox Wilder because he's got to he can't get hit, basically. And Ruiz, like Usyk, will be in the danger zone at all times whenever he tries to land his punches. Being the shorter guy, he's got to get in range, the punching range of Wilder to get his shots off. But I prefer the Usyk fight. So much more on the line potentially for Deontay to gain in his career beating Usyk. Joshua fight is probably the biggest money fight out there. And it's two Adonises, two ripped guys with knockout power. Someone's getting concussed and knocked out that night. And even though it's not for the belts, these guys are still in great physical shape, and it's still such an exciting style matchup. That fight probably makes the most money. But for my money, I would love to see Wilder go up against Usyk and be one right hand away from true greatness in his career. So, but that's about it, man. I've Z-capped all these fights throughout the weekend. I might have missed a thing or two that I wanted to get off, but I think we got through it. Now I open it up to you guys. If there's anything you guys want to talk about before we get up out of here, or anything you want to push back on, if you felt I said some bullshit that you didn't agree with, let me know. I'm gonna let you guys have it in the chat and see what you guys got. Frank Sanchez TKO Negron. Ife KO'd a couple more. Probably beats Ruiz up in training camp. Frank Sanchez was a little underwhelming. I think his stock took a little bump down from the fight. Carlos Negron outboxed him in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round and middle parts of that fight with his jab. And Sanchez was plodding forward, not cutting the ring off, and was loading up on a lot of shots, missing, and had problems getting past the jab to where you're saying if Carlos Negron's giving Frank Sanchez this much problems with the jab, what's he going to do with Usyk or Fury? But he still is definitely a top 10 heavyweight. I think Frank Sanchez is better against an aggressive type fighter. He'd do better. Not saying he'd beat Joe Joyce, but I think he'd do better with a Joe Joyce type style than he would against someone like Fury or Usyk. He's better on the back foot than he is the front foot. That was my observation from the fight. I still like Frank Sanchez, but he looked a lot better with Ife Ajagba coming forward than he did going after on the front foot Carlos Negron. So, Alex Merrick, what do you think of Mayweather and Deji? Is Mayweather ruining his career? No, he can't. No. I get it. I think what you're trying to touch on is Mayweather. Is this beneath Floyd Mayweather being a great fighter, doing exhibitions against YouTube novices? I think that's kind of what you're getting at. I get your point, but no. Look, none of us in our right mind would turn down $15 million to beat a guy that's greatly overmatched in an exhibit. All of us, you would take that money, Alex. I'm sure I would too. Doesn't mean you got to tune in and like it or praise it, certainly. But no, he's not ruining anything. He's just making money over there. However, if he were to ever fight Jake Paul, because I think, it's just me speculating, but I imagine the Showtime side of things and their business, the people in the business side of that, eventually want to make Jake Paul versus Floyd Mayweather because they make him a bunch of fucking money. And if Floyd at 45 plus gets in there with this big kid who's been training, and this big kid lands something crazy on Floyd, that will affect his legacy. People will rain down on Floyd Mayweather, and the memes will come and all that. So that's a scenario that he maybe has to watch out for a little bit, because I think Floyd's going to get a lot of money thrown. He already has, I'm sure, but he's going to get, I'm talking 9 figures. Make sure my math's right. Yeah, 9 figures thrown his way. Excess of $100 million at some point. That's going to get pushed to the table in front of him against Jake Paul, and against a kid who's 50 pounds, 40 pounds naturally bigger than him, and young, and has been training. It's a dangerous fight at this point in his life. So, he's going to have to consider that when that comes. But no, he's not ruining nothing. Best fighter of his era. Are you Ashton Kutcher? No, I am not. But I do like the compare. I've always been happy with the comparison of looking like him. Ashton, back in the day, all the ladies liked Ashton Kutcher, so I'm cool with that being the comparison. World Boxing Super Series needs to force the hand of all fighters at 35, 47, and heavyweight. Any chance of that occurring? Love to see it, but no chance of that occurring. Those tournaments were largely done with foreign fighters. Even the one we did that was on American television with Showtime was really Andre Ward and a bunch of foreign fighters. These are foreign fighters with foreign promoters, and they're able to assemble them all and make a tournament. I don't foresee that happening with the fighters signed to the American promoters and to Eddie Hearn overseas. I don't see all those business minds getting under a roof and making a tournament. No way. Unfortunate, but true. Who do I got? Caleb and David. I got David. I think Caleb gives David fits in the first half, but it's David's fight in the second half. Alex Myrick is staying on it. Plant owns Benavidez. Who is realistically next for Haney aside Loma? It's Ask Double R. I think a move up to 140. And, Devin's the kind of fighter I think that would move right into, could very well move into a title fight right at 140. I could see him fighting the winner of Zepeda and Prograis at 140. I could see that happening. I think if he doesn't fight Lomachenko at 35, I think he moves up to 40. I don't think you get a Stevenson fight. I don't think you get unfortunately, I don't think you get Ryan or Tank at 35. If it's not Loma, it's probably 140. And he'll have his eyes on the WBC belt first and foremost. Whether he would jump right into the winner of Zepeda and Prograis, I don't know. I think there's a solid chance he would. And I think at that point at 140, the business at hand would be with Teofimo. I think that's the fight Top Rank would look to build up, is him and Teofimo. They'd look to get a belt on Teofimo. Teofimo fights Pedraza. After that, I wouldn't be surprised if they put him in with one of the belt holders, maybe Josh Taylor. Maybe they put Teofimo in with Josh Taylor, and they put Devin Haney in with the winner of Zepeda Prograis, and then those two make a unification fight at 140. I think that's certainly one of the options Top Rank has discussed in depth. Is Boo Boo Andre done? Resume is lacking, and nobody seems interested. No belt now. He's in a tough spot, and he got paid really well to beat guys that he was more talented than, that mandatories on DAZN. Got paid very well by Eddie Hearn for that. And I would hope for him that, he's actually already made enough money in boxing. So maybe that's why you get that lack of urgency, is because, traditionally in boxing, being frozen out of the big fights means being frozen out of the real money. But because he jumped on DAZN when they first launched in 2018, he got a good deal when they were handing out lots of big caches of money. So Boo Boo got paid despite getting frozen out of the big fights. And I do think his peak is behind him. He's in his 30s. I don't think he's quite the talent he was at 154 pounds when he was just an incredible talent at 154. Still was very good at 160. It's a shame Billy Joe Saunders got his way out of their fight back in 2018. I think Boo Boo was going to beat Saunders, and that would have done a lot for his career. He probably would have been in some bigger fights at this point if Saunders wouldn't have tested positive for a PED. But Andrade's in a tough spot right now, and he hasn't always shown a whole lot of initiative to want to get out of that spot. And, I hope he's made some good money. But I don't foresee him getting a big fight now. It wasn't a good look for him to be the boogeyman no one wants to fight And then once one of his mandatories was actually interesting and dangerous in Janibek, he said, nah, I don't want to do this. That wasn't a good look. So, Quasimoto says, best play-by-play I've seen on YouTube. My guy, salute. Thank you, brother. Happy you guys joined in. Dirty Bugger, Anderson versus Sanchez, meeting Jared Anderson, right? I would have favored Frank Sanchez if you asked me before Saturday. I'm tempted to. It's still a tough fight for Anderson because Anderson is gonna come and bring the fight, and Sanchez is better when a guy's coming to him than instead of fighting an awkward guy trying to play spoiler like Carlos Negron. So tough, tall order for Anderson, but I really like Jared Anderson. I like that he likes to mix it up in the heavyweight division. That he trusts himself in the pocket, in punching range. He trusts his pull counters in range. He doesn't move a step out. He doesn't move out of range. He stays in range, and he trusts his defense in the pocket, and he wants to hurt you. So I give the edge to Jared Anderson now, whereas before I think that would have been a little bit of a tall order too early in his career. So Double R says, when or how often do you go live, bruh? I'd like to tap in. I've never really done this. Like, I've never done a Monday morning thoughts after the fight. Usually I'm doing I would be doing my thing with Sean and Carson and the guys, but this is something I really want to start doing on FightHype. And I would love it, you guys joining in, and we would probably do this on Sundays instead of Monday. Sunday when some of us haven't even gone to sleep that much after the fight because we're still buzzing. So this would be a Sunday thing. But yeah, man, I plan on doing this a lot more coming forward, and I hope you guys will join along. LEK, laughing my ass off. You don't land 60% of power shots and not KO people. He has puppies for. I imagine you're referencing Haney. Floyd would land about 60% of power shots sometimes and not KO people, but those guys would tell you after the fight they were tamed. They respected the power enough to not keep coming in. David Williams, thank you so much for the 10, man. Thank you so much, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Your show is off the hook. What do you think about Baby Miller? Big Baby Miller. And Leonard Miller, thank you too, man, for getting in. What's your opinion of Jaron Ennis? Will he get an IBF mandatory versus Spence, or will he duck him and drop? Get right to you, Leonard. Let me get to David first. Thank you guys both so much for joining in. Big Baby Miller, man, I haven't heard that. I haven't thought of him much. Since what happened with Joshua. He's been out of sight, out of mind. Hasn't fought on a major network with a major promoter. I know he's had some fights since then. He's won them. His body hasn't looked good. He was a guy that carried that big baby fat really well and had built himself into a muscular frame. We found out in part through performance enhancers, and he threw 100 punches around on HBO, and he was becoming a fun contender in the division and was undefeated, but then he gets popped, and his physique has went south ever since then. Shout out to my man Brendan Taylor of True School Sports. I'm gonna borrow his knowledge for a minute. He talked to Dirrell down there in Florida, and he asked Dirrell, "How you doing, man?" And Dirrell was kind of, "I'm all right." And he goes, "Are you really living these days, or are you just simply existing?" And I guess Dirrell took a deep breath and looked at my friend Brendan and said, "I've just been existing." So he's been, he's been dealing with the fallout of his actions, and it's been tough on him. And, we may feel like that's deserved, but that was kind of tough to hear. And I don't know if Dirrell will ever get another shot. He's got to go through a really long, extended period of fighting clean, and he's got to win those fights. And at some point, he's got to look good. And if he can do that, then maybe he gets an opportunity again at a big fight. But he's going to have to win clean for an extended period of time, maybe 5 years, the next 5 or 6 years. He's going to have to be active, at least in today's terms, active, fight twice a year at least, and win and be clean and start to look like a threat again, winning clean, and maybe you can get a chance again. Thank you, David, for throwing in the $10, man. Back to the other question, Jaron Ennis, IBF, Kenny to Leonard Miller. My opinion on Jaron Ennis is he's the most naturally gifted fighter in the sport. He is the Roy Jones of boxing today in terms of just the most freakish talent in the game. Incredible reflexes, great size at welterweight, is going to be a middleweight one day. And he has this rare blend. Deontay Wilder is fast, and I think that's overlooked. That's part of why he punches hard. Me and my man BT, the head of FightHype, talked about that people they jump right to number 3. They skip 1 and 2. The speed and the athleticism of Wilder. Some of that power is because he's so fast at 214 at heavyweight. But Jaron Ennis, he has this rare blend of that's quick. Like Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence have 2 different types of punching power. Terrence Crawford's a snappy puncher. It's the snap on the end of the shot with the speed that hurts you. Errol Spence is a heavy-handed fighter. It's not so much the speed. It's he's just got heavy hands, heavy fists. George Foreman had that from Texas too. Heavy hands. Mike Tyson was a snappy puncher. George Foreman was a heavy-handed puncher. Mike Tyson was snap. Jaron Ennis is one of the rare guys I've seen with both. He has that quick-fisted snap on the punch and the power, but then he has these brick hands. He has these heavy hands. Gervonta Davis has that too. He has the snap power with heavy hands. And so Jaron Ennis is to me the most electric talent pound for pound in the sport. But the question with him is either does he have a good chin so that if he does get caught, because sometimes that chin is up there a little bit, but he's so athletic and he trusts his reflexes so much in his upper body movement that the chin's out there, but it's really not getting touched unless he's moving in for the kill like he did against Delorme, where he's not respecting what's coming back and he's looking to get the guy out of there and he eats a shot. But if he eats that shot, if he gets hit, he's going to get hit clean because the chin's out there. It's just not getting touched because the reflexes aren't letting anyone get there. But the chin is up there a little bit for Jaron. And so he's either going to have a good chin to make that a moot point. He's going to have to be a Philly fighter with a good chin. Or he might be like Roy Jones where, yeah, that chin looks there and it's dangling there, but you're never going to get to it because you got to walk through so many landmines and the guy is so fast and powerful and athletic, you're not going to reach there anyways, and you're probably going to be looking up at the canvas within 6 rounds. So I still got some questions for Boots. That chin is exposed sometimes. Can he take a shot? And or is it the defense at the elite level going to be as tough as it is for guys to hit him in the lower levels? We'll see. Will he get to the IBF mandatory spot? He will. He'll get there. But at that point, Spence might move up. I don't think Spence will fight him at welterweight. I don't think Crawford will fight him at welterweight. I don't think either one of these guys will fight him. Jaron, unfortunately, doesn't have a big fan base, so he doesn't bring a lot of money to the table. In today's era of boxing, he's only fighting twice a year. He fought 5 rounds in 2022. That's really no way to build a momentum for a guy who's essentially still a little bit, he's a contender, but in a prospect, in the come-up stage. So 5 rounds fought, 2 great knockouts, but it's hard for him to keep building his profile fighting twice a year. And he's too high of a risk for too low of a reward. He doesn't bring a belt to the table. Terrence and Errol, whoever wins, is already going to have all the belts at welterweight, and they'll probably be looking at 154 pounds or a big rematch with each other. I don't think Jaron's going to get his opportunity, and that's a shame because despite his lack of experience, he might beat both of them. He might beat both Crawford and Spence. They got him beat, I'm sure, right now from the neck up. They got the experience and the wisdom that only experience can teach in big title fights. But Jaron, I think from the neck down, the physical talent, he's got them beat. I think he's more explosive and electric physical talent than both of them. They're both in their 30s too, and he's in his 20s in his prime. So unfortunately, though, I don't think he's going to get his chance at welterweight against Crawford or Spence. But he might just beat either one of them if he ever did get his chance. Dirty Bugger says Hearn did nothing for Andrade. He didn't in terms of getting him good fights, but he got him paid. So we can't say he did him nothing. Timmy Turner, why is Tank's team so major against fighting Garcia, Lomachenko, Haney, and Stevenson? Well, they're not against fighting Garcia. They're trying to get that fight made for January. They tried to get that fight made earlier in the year as well. They feel Garcia brings the most to the box office, and he also happens to be a little less difficult than Stevenson and Haney. But he is a bigger puncher than those guys. He does have a one-punch power that neither Stevenson or Haney have, and he's bigger than them. Well, not so much Devin. He's bigger than Shakur, who was a featherweight. So Ryan is still a very dangerous fight, but it's the right kind of risk for the right kind of reward. Haney and Shakur are bigger threats for less of a reward. And Lomachenko, they said they were never interested in fighting Lomachenko, so criticize him there as you please. But they're looking to make Ryan because it's the right kind of risk for the right kind of reward. That's how that goes. And Ryan really is a great fight with Tank stylistically. Someone's going to get knocked out. It's a great matchup of speed and power versus speed and power. Both guys have fast hands and great punching power. So we'll see Tank the more skilled and experienced guy, but Ryan the bigger guy. Boxing IQ, Tawasi, how come my guy didn't get an Eddie Hearn interview when he was in Australia? That Hearn needs to be put on blast. I wasn't in Australia. I was in home here in Vegas calling the fights. Our guy Nick Noonan, shout out to our guy Nick Noonan. I don't think Eddie was in Australia at the fights, I believe. He didn't have that. The only fighter he had on the weekend, I think, was Baumgardner on the co-main event against Mayer. So I don't even know if Eddie Hearn was in Australia to interview. Let's see here. Finishing up here. Are you tapping in for Zittel? Different fight. Hearn was there for Liam Parr. Oh, okay. Got you. So different venue, still in Australia. Liam Parr had a great first round knockout. He's on the come up in Australia, and Eddie promotes him. But I don't even think FightHype even had anyone there to get him. Nice dude. Does Haney beat Loma if the fight happens? I went over that in depth earlier, and yeah, I think Haney does beat him. To put it simply, smaller, older guy was a 126 pounder against a younger, fresher guy who's going to be a 147 pounder one day. One kid, younger, getting better. The other guy, older, has had injuries, smaller. I think on paper, Haney's the favorite. I'll be just surprised and in disagreement if people are still thinking Lomachenko's going to beat Devin Haney. But yeah, I will be, my bad, Double R. I will be tapped in for Zittel, Bivol, November 5th. We'll be live with a round by round for that. I got Bivol in that fight. Zittel's gonna get his best work with Bivol on the ropes, but Bivol has good educated feet and good conditioning and a good jab to keep that fight in the center of the ring where he'll have the advantage. Superior fundamentals. Zittel's got to fight the Julio Cesar Chavez kind of fight. He's got to get Bivol to the ropes and get to the body. But I do think Bivol's a little bit more compact puncher than him. His punches are a little shorter. Ramirez a little wider. He gets a little fat on those body shots. He's a southpaw. He'll drop those left uppercuts to the body, and you can counter him there. That's what I mean. He's a little wider, a little more room to punch in between his punches, whereas Bivol keeps it very tight and compact with his shots. He's got the better jab than Bivol, than Zittel. He's been fighting better competition than Zittel. So I think Bivol has the advantage in the center of the ring. I'm sure Zittel will have his moments. I expect the majority of his moments to come when he pins Bivol along the ropes. He's a little bit bigger than Bivol, but I got Bivol winning that fight, probably 117, 111, unanimous decision. Right, he had Paro and Sky. Sean the Icon, right? Shout out to you. You're right. He has Sky Nicholson, also from Australia. She's fought like 5 or 6 times. She's off to a hot start. She's doing exactly what a prospect should do, fighting as often as possible on as many cards as possible. She kind of fights like Billy Joe Saunders a little bit. Dirty Bugger thinks it's easy work for Bivol. R. Stokes, I think Devin beats everyone at 35. Just my opinion. I agree. I think he's the toughest guy to beat at 35. But you know what, man? I think that's about it. I think we touched on everything, man. Thank you guys so much for joining in. We wound up having almost 500 people in the chat. That exceeded my expectations. I'm grateful that you guys rocked with me. Please keep rocking with us. We want to do this every Sunday morning thoughts, man. We with ZCap. We want to come back and chop it up with you guys. And let's get more interactive. Shout out to the super chats. Thank you so much, guys. And we want to get more interactive moving forward, man. You guys that want to give your opinion, or if you want to go skipping Shannon with me and disagree with me about something, you think you got the knowledge and I'm wrong, I think going forward, we want to start having you guys tap in and get a little more interactive with the fans. So keep a lookout going forward. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Keep it locked in on FightHype. Shout out to everyone, all the boxing fans around the world. And thank you, everyone. See you soon.